Hey everyone, it's Jen again. Hope you had a good week. I'm doing things a little bit differently today because I'm working on a larger illustration. And I was going to wait until I finished it to do my voiceover and have a discussion, but time is ticking today, so I'm not sure if I'll have a chance to finish it. This might get uploaded on Monday, depending on when I finish this illustration. But yeah, it was a pretty good week as far as development went. So far, I am on schedule for finishing the endings. Right now, I've projected that I'll be finishing it by March 1st. There shouldn't be much to fix as far as bug testing and all that, since the endings aren't really introducing any new programming code. It's mainly just dialogue and visual display, very standard RenPy stuff. So I don't anticipate any major setbacks about that. I'm only giving myself a couple days to do any bug fixes, so we'll see if that comes to bite me in the butt later on. As far as everyday life goes, work's been a bit rough. The community is struggling. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but when you work with the public, the way that I work with the public at the library, you can't help but feel when the community is struggling. And that's kind of where we're at right now, and I think there's a lot of city libraries that are probably going through similar struggles right now. So I just want to remind everyone to try to have empathy for others. You never know what they're going through, and right now there's a lot of people who are just struggling. That kind of applies broadly speaking. I don't know if I've ever been alive in a time where people weren't struggling somewhere. Of course, right? But it just feels more pronounced now. I think that morale in general has also been a bit of a struggle to keep our mindset in a more positive place. And certainly there is such things like toxic positivity, where when you're not allowed to feel and explore and understand your legitimate negative feelings, that is a problem. But also when you are going through life day by day, staying in a constant state of distress, despair, negative thoughts is not healthy either. So that is one of the things that I use game development for, is that means of having an outlet for expression, making connections with people through my art and stories on a level that I have difficulty making connections with in person. Exploring ideas and humanity, through these characters and these worlds. It's never so deep as I have an agenda, I'm trying to preach something. It's never like that. It's more like just a collection of observations that I want to have discussions about. And so lately, the Arcane Dice Wars community has having more discussion than I ever thought any of my games would ever have. And it really only takes a handful of people to be open to discourse, to really feel like I'm having that level of connection that I've always wanted to have with my games. So that feels really rewarding, especially going into the very last kind of leg of development where I'm wrapping up these endings. These past couple years working on this project, on this IP, I never thought that I would be doing everything that I did with Arcane Dice Wars. I didn't start the game development planning on doing animations, planning on having so much art, planning on spending over 2 years on it. Like, none of that. It's just funny to look back and remember that it all started with me just wanting to make a combat system, just for fun, because I always enjoyed role-playing games, and being frustrated with a lot of like the mobile RPGs that had come out and their very predatory monetizations. And so I was like, well, I want to make a game that you're going to be able to collect a bunch of characters like how you do in a mobile game, but there'll be no predatory costs involved. And my other frustration too was that there wasn't a lot of like compelling male characters and like love interests in that regard. So I was going to make something that was more catered towards a female audience. Those were my main motivations when I was starting the project, and it's just blossomed into so much more than that. I never imagined that I would develop the characters to the extent that I've developed them. I didn't think that I would be able to become so attached to all the different characters with there being such a large cast. Even without including the common units, it's still 13 characters, which is a huge that's a huge roster for me. Usually I would only stick to a handful of characters. So it's just been so many firsts for me, and I've really enjoyed my time with it. And so going into this last leg is kind of like this bittersweet moment for me, and I think for some of the players who have been following me for the majority of this 2-year journey, it's gonna feel maybe a little bit weird having the journey finally end. But this is the other thing that I really love about working on my own projects and working on it as a primarily solo and indie developer, is that I get to finish things. I get to bring this world and story to a close, and maybe someday I'll go back and revisit it. I've decided I do have ideas in the back of my head, like if I were to make a third game or a DLC. I think at this point it would have to be a third game because it would be hard to squish in DLC content to Arcane Dice Wars given how long it is already. I think where it would take place would be in Cape Town, and the story would be more exploring the southern division, or the characters that would be involved would have a heavy association with that. And given how much everybody loved Asher, it seems, of course, him coming from the south, the southern coast, he would have a larger part in the story from the beginning as well. So it could be fun. It might just be a fleeting thought, because I don't know if I will have the interest to revisit it after I finish EGT, which is going to be my next project, which I'm planning on hopefully finishing in a year. I want to make that project smaller than Arcane Dice Wars. I'm thinking that it's still going to be kind of long for a Ren'Py solo dev indie hobby game. It's probably going to be more around the length of Villain's Heart, and it's going to have a cast more around that size, with only having 3 love interests. Whether or not I will ever go back to as a project as large in scope as Arcane Dice Wars, I'm not sure, because wow, that really that really snowballed into something way larger. than I thought it would be. And of course, I should know myself better than to think I can just slap together a bunch of generic characters for the player to collect. Of course, I had to flesh out their individual stories and personalities and growth and all that kind of stuff. And that was, along with all the art and that just that ended up being a lot. And I can't really imagine like going into a project with that type of scope in mind like again, but we'll see after I finish working on my next project idea where I'm at. That's my thoughts and my week in a nutshell, and I'm excited to be going into February, and I hope that you're all having a good week. If you're working on anything right now, don't forget to enjoy the process. If you're having struggles, try reaching out to others. It's so important during this time, especially when you're struggling, to not isolate yourself. And I guess I just say that because of my own personal history, especially working when I used to work from home. And, I thought that it was always just enough to have my art and my stories to heal myself. And it wasn't. It was never enough. It would feel a little bit of a need. It would distract. It would be a good distraction, but it was never a replacement for in-person, meaningful interactions. And those interactions I've spoken to in the past, if those interactions are all about just like trauma dumping, I think you've waited too long. We need to have interactions like casual interactions, just sharing spaces with people. These are all important little gestures of being connected with our fellow person. And I think sometimes in modern days it's easy to kind of be in more curated spaces, especially with like being online and stuff, to find like-minded people. But I think it's important to also just be part of the broader community, not necessarily like accosting strangers and like trying to start up random conversations with people, but just sharing space with them, being outside, touching grass, as one would say, and seeing how other people are going about their day and just mingling in that shared communal spaces, I think is important. And hopefully, it's a way of just reminding ourselves, that we are part of this like broader community. It's not just this abstract, consciousness of thoughts that are just swirling around online. Okay. Again, take care, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.